conclusion. I ultimately came to the conclusion that maybe there just isn't an easy way to comprehend nor introduce the complexities of forgiveness in a 5-minute reflection. Still, I felt that this poem captures that sentiment, and so I thought it would be appropriate to share it with you today. Forgiving Our Fathers by Dick Lowry. How do we forgive our fathers? Maybe in a dream. Do we forgive our fathers for leaving us too often or forever when we were little? Maybe for scaring us with unexpected rage or making us nervous because there never seemed to be any rage at all. Do we forgive our fathers for marrying or not marrying our mothers, or for divorcing or not divorcing our mothers? And shall we forgive them for their excesses of warmth or coldness? Shall we forgive them for pushing or leaning, for shutting doors, for speaking through walls, or never speaking, or never being silent? Do we forgive our fathers in our age or in theirs, or in their deaths? Saying it to them or not saying it? If we forgive others, if we forgive our fathers, what is left? That last line of the poem presents one heck of a question. What is left when we shift our focus away from that which hurts our souls? Not one of us can say that we've never experienced harm at the hands of someone else. Oftentimes, our first instinct is to feel anger or resentment. But as we all know, in the long run, holding on to these feelings can cause us even more damage. And yet, as the poem shows, even forgiveness can be a painful process. Nonetheless, it is a process that I believe is somewhat inherent to our human nature. After all, we all want peace of mind. Even so, each of us is different. And so learning to forgive will present challenges that are unique to our own personalities, our own perspectives and experiences. And so my hope for us, all souls, is that we each learn to lean into the practice of forgiveness a bit more so that we may all reap the benefits of learning to let go. Thank you.
Hi all, just a second while I get my presentation view on. Good morning. I am having a lot of Wi-Fi issues, as it happens when you are the one in the hot seat. And so I thank you for your patience. At this time, I invite Elizabeth Drucker to share a little bit about the sermon that she has pre-recorded for us. Elizabeth, if you're able to, I know you're on the call, would you be able to speak a little bit about what motivated you to pick this particular topic for us? Elizabeth?
Hi, Nasreen, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so what prompted me to talk about it was actually that I had done a presentation on this, or a talk before, written a sermon. And so I was a little challenged by Reverend Joel to try it again. And so this was the second take on it. So that was where it came from.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. This is Sarah, and I have had an extremely busy week. I'm sure you have too. And so this 4th of July, I am going to tell you a story and not even use any slides. But you're going to have to use your imaginations because it's got daisies in it and also rocket ships. Okay, ready? Believe it or not, the daisy in this story is a person. And Daisy knew one important thing, and that is that Brady, another kid in her class, was a pill. He was the worst. Every time she saw him, he did the exact same thing. He did this. Oh no! Here comes that flower! Get her away from me! I'm allergic to daisies! And then he would cough, or he would sneeze, or he would even pretend to throw up. Even though none of those things were good ideas during COVID. And even though he was one of those kids whose mask was down below his nose, way more than was strictly reasonable. Now, Daisy was pretty experienced, so she knew that this was a moment when the Universalist part of Unitarian Universalist really mattered. Because it's easy to be a Universalist when you're dealing with people that you like, right? In case you don't know, a Universalist was not someone who flew around the universe in a rocket ship, even though you have to admit, that would make a lot of sense, and it would also be very cool. Now, being a Universalist means that you believe that after people die, it's not like some of them go to a good place and others go to a bad place, even if some people are really, really bugging you. No. A Universalist believes that everyone is loved and everyone is saved. Even if some people seem like they might be a little harder to save, even from themselves, than others. And during this life, Universalists are supposed to model that kind of love and treat everyone like we're all going to end up in the same place together. Now, Daisy also kind of knew that Brady was unhappy sometimes. He got in trouble in school now and then. She had seen his dad hollering at him in the parking lot. And Brady couldn't eat dairy, which meant he absolutely never got pudding in the cafeteria. So he had his problems, and she knew what people at church would probably say. They'd tell her to have compassion for Brady, to see things from his point of view. So she tried. She really did. And then he said, "You ever see people pull petals off a daisy? She loves me. She loves me not." And he pulled her hair. Hard. And in that moment, Daisy felt zero compassion for Brady. And she was sure that he was the biggest pill in the universe. A giant vitamin like her mom had to take when she was pregnant with Daisy's little sister. A horse pill. Horse pills are enormous. Fortunately, Daisy's teacher, Mrs. Kim, saw. She got Daisy an ice pack to put on her sore head and gave her a little quiet time and some stickers. She wrote a note to Daisy's parents and another one to Brady's. And she made it clear to Brady that Daisy's body belonged to Daisy and no one else, and that he was not to touch Daisy without Daisy's permission, ever. But strangely, none of this totally helped. Daisy was mad and sweaty, and her face was red, and her eyes were watering, and she seriously wished she was the kind of Universalist who had a rocket ship so she could put Brady in it and send him to the moon. She was mad after school. She was mad during dessert. She was mad when she went to bed. She looked out the window at the moon and pictured a rocket carrying Brady in that direction. Possibly crash landing. You never knew. She was pretty sure these were not Universalist vibes that she was feeling. And then she lay there feeling guilty for being a bad Universalist. By breakfast, she had a serious stomach ache. "Is this about what happened with Brady?" asked her dad. "I can come in with you and say hi to your teacher if that would help." But Daisy was pretty sure Brady had forgotten all about it by now. She was the one who couldn't. I'm the worst universalist on Earth or the moon, she told her dad. I can't love Brady. I just can't. He's a pill. He sounds like a piece of work, said her dad. He's a whole career, said Daisy, and I hate this job. You can be a universalist and not love Brady, her dad told her. When people are doing harm, it is very hard to love them. That's part of why Unitarian Universalists honor Jesus and think he's special, because he worked really hard on that in maybe the toughest situation there is. I appreciate you working on it too, but I want to make sure you know that you don't have to be friendly with someone who hurts you. You can stay away from Brady, and that's okay. I know. Mrs. Kim said that too, but it doesn't help. I'm still really mad. It's making my stomach hurt. I just want to stop being upset. Her dad came over and gave her a hug. Sometimes when we stay angry like this, it's because we're still thinking about what happened over and over, trying to put ourselves in that person's shoes and understand what they did. And you know what? We just can't, because it's not something we would have done. So our thoughts go around and around like laundry in a washing machine. Yes, said Daisy, that's how it feels. What works for me when that happens is to tell myself, I don't have to get it. I can just forgive them and move on. Forgiving a person doesn't mean that I give them more chances to hurt me. That's not my job. I can be watchful. I can keep space between us. But forgiving them means I let go of the problem. It's not my problem. It's their problem. And that gives me some peace. Sometimes once I've done that, I'll realize much later that I can feel that universal love for them again. I can even root for them to solve their own problems. And I feel a little relieved when that happens. So, Daisy tried doing what her dad had said. Like most of her parents' suggestions, it was not easy. It felt like doing push-ups. It felt like taking a rocket ship to the moon if the rocket ship broke down halfway and you had to get out and push. But Daisy, like a lot of you, was tough and stubborn. So she kept working on it, and it did help. Not just with Brady, but with other people too. And since Daisy's dad and other friends of theirs at church were also doing this Universalist workout, there were people to talk to about it when things got tough. It was like forgiveness was a planet, much farther away than the moon, and they were all journeying toward it in their own rocket ships together. And Daisy thought it was nice to have company. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for recording that for us. I am going to reshare my screen because I realized I hadn't shared the sound. Here we go.
Hi, everybody.
Are you all able to see that? No? Okay.
Hi, everybody.
This is a song called Black Cherry, played by one of our members, Rex Martin.
Black cherry from Londonderry, will you marry me? No contrary, oh don't you tarry, say yes and I do. Black cherry, your colors vary, will I ever really know you? And as you're blooming, am I assuming you cherish me too? And when you call my name, my heart tell me it's true. I can count on one as two. Am I chasing your image, racing with nary a clue? Will you reciprocate as I anticipated, so you know what I do? Lush lips define my crush, soft skin and I long to touch. Let's dimples shine on cheeks of rose divine. Black cherry, my love you carry, will you be my bride? The sweetest berry is found so rarely, the day I fell for you. Black cherry from Londonderry, will you marry me? Though contrary, oh don't you tarry, just say yes and I do.
Now we'll hear from Elizabeth Farr and her sermon on forgiveness. Oh.
Let me choose my lot, but whether I'd be happy or not. The choice is mine. Life may not let me choose my lot, but whether I'd be happy or not. That is my choice. To leave hurtful memories behind or allow them to bother my mind, the choice is mine. To fret over a mistake when it's done or learn from it and move on, the choice is mine. To be bothered by all the people that say or ignore them and go my own way, the choice is mine. To hide my feelings, pent up, unspoken, or say my mind and ease the burden, the choice is mine. To enjoy what I've been able to gain, or gratefully regard it with disdain, the choice is mine. Sometimes I won't get to pick my lot, but whether I'll be happy or not will always be my choice.
This is Amazing Grace, sung by two more of our community.
was far, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has borne His promise good to me. His word, my heart secures. He will my shield and portion be, as life endures. Well, we've been dead 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've no fewer days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
Good morning. For our joys and sorrows this morning, I'd love for you to take a look at the order of service. There's several members of our community that are struggling with health issues, with various sorrows and ailments, and their information is in the chat. I am just looking at my other computer here to see those things. So Jennifer Carnahan would appreciate some cards and notes after her surgery. As would Sherilyn Bainey and Gary Bainey, and those others listed in the order of service. Another joy and sorrow of today is a joy that the sorrow of like missing my other colleagues. I just want to hold up Greg and Sarah and Reverend Joel, who are not with me today. And so probably won't hear this, but they are an absolute joy to work with. I've never worked anywhere in my life where every staff member feels like family. And so for them, I'm particularly grateful today. This is Spirit of Life, played on our All Souls organ. I misspoke earlier and introduced Elizabeth's reading as her sermon. So finally here we have her sermon. Thank you so much for doing this, Elizabeth.
We welcome this morning Elizabeth Drucker. She offers us this sermon titled Forgiveness.
Years ago, I got a fortune in a cookie that read, "I forgive myself and I set myself free." Little did I know that this was going to be the beginning of a personal journey to do just that, to learn about forgiveness of self and to learn about forgiving others. The journey I'm going to share now with you is one that is spiritual in nature. Both acceptance and spiritual growth are part of the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, specifically principle number 3 that speaks about the acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth. I've come to realize that forgiveness is one of the hardest and most difficult things to come to terms with. For me personally, it is about digging way down inside into the darkest parts of my inner self and seeing what is there. It is about learning where the need for forgiveness comes from and its importance in my life. Forgiveness work is not clean, not tidy, and not at all pleasant. It's complex work and ongoing. It comes in waves and phases, and it moves in and out of my feeling world. The way in which I forgive and the need to forgive has also changed in my life. What has not changed for me is realizing that forgiveness is a necessity in order for me to be fully aware in my spiritual and personal life. So you might wonder how it is that I came to do so much work about forgiveness. Well, it's been a truly personal journey for me as my life has unfolded. As a child, I was physically, emotionally, sexually, and psychologically abused. I came from a home with two parents, both of whom were well educated and were a fairly affluent and white family, defying the stereotypes of most abusive homes. So how could it be that I was abused? Well, all families have issues, and mine abounded with them. 3 out of 5 of my family members were bipolar. I shared this once with a friend who does chaplaincy work, and he looked at me and said to me, "Elizabeth, how is it that you are still standing in front of me and still saying?" To that I answer, a lot of therapy and more therapy, and then the realization that I had to do my work on forgiveness. At the start of my journey doing therapy, I was young, probably in high school. I was very quiet, and I did not talk much in school. Much of the not talking part came from knowing I was not going to be heard. I was deemed what was called the involuntary client. My parents made me go to therapy because I was not performing up to my scholastic abilities. I did not talk at first in sessions, and I resented being there, to say the least. I did verbalize at home though, and it was not fun and it was not pleasant. I was seething with anger at my very dysfunctional parents. I could not really hear them, and they really could not hear me. I learned very early in life to take care of my own needs, and I knew that my parents were not going to be there for me. I did fortunately come to terms with therapy and the woman I was working with. She was, I realized, what I am today, a clinical social worker. She did all she could to help me, considering how little I would say to her, and she tried to get me to see that I had potential and what would happen if I did not stay in the gifted and talented school that I was then attending. I can assure you that it is very hard to focus on school and homework when daily you are met with 2 alcoholic parents at dinner time, one of whom was very violent towards me. It took time for me to come into myself, to realize what things I was good at doing, and to figure out what was the best route to do as well as I could to get out of my house as soon as I could. My challenge was my health early in years. And no one ever tells you that when you're being traumatized and abused that this will have a dramatic and negative effect on your body long term. I now know all too well what those effects are. My realization about forgiveness is that it helped to alleviate some of those issues. This was one of the things that drove me to do this work. I knew I had to do this to help myself. I began on my own to realize how much the trauma I had been through was affecting me. It did not get to this point until I had my own family and children. It was then that I saw how really angry I was, and that I needed, as the book title says, to have the courage to heal. I realized I had to forgive those who would abuse me and hurt me in the most intimate and deep ways possible. When a child is not able to rely on a parent to do basic things, basic care, the trauma is deep. When I talk about working on forgiveness, this is when I became aware of how painful, how unbelievably challenging, and how absolutely gut-wrenching this work is. It required me to reach into the depths of my soul, find all the negative things that inhabited the darkest, most remote parts of my soul and memory and dig them up. And then had to have the strength and courage to do the work of talking through them and about the trauma. I had to cry, I had to feel sick to my stomach, I had to writhe in emotional and physical pain with not always a clear boundary between the two, and hopefully come out on the other side of this work and start to heal the deep and bloody wounds I had inside. For me, it was learning that despite all the darkness, the anger, and the meanness within me, that I was only the target of the unhappiness of others. It meant that when I could get to this point to realize that they projected their mental illness and their anger and their hate on me, that I could begin to heal the wounds that I carried around for so many years. It was, and it still is, about learning to dress my own wounds and being very aware that I am still fragile and I do get wounded. It's about being able to get knocked down over and over, dealing with the anger of others, and then being able to get back up and forgive them. It is about getting wounded in intimate relationships, whether they be romantic or just really soulful friendships, and then learning all over again to forgive. For me, to hold on to the anger is not an option, and to not forgive is not an option. To hold on to anger and not forgive is like a sore that consumes you from the inside out. It hurts constantly and it comes out every so often. Does this mean I never get angry or hurt? No. It just means that recovery time for each incident usually gets shorter. It means coming to realize that you are spiritually growing and realizing it is not all about you. It is about learning that anger comes out of pain. It is then about forgiving the person or the persons who have taken it into their power to work to hurt you. I learned to take away that power by not reacting as much, or for as long, or as deeply. I learned that this process takes away the agony by learning that forgiving others is the best thing to do in life. The opposite of anger is darkness and depression. It's a place I have visited, and I don't particularly like it. It's a place where I watch many people go. Depression is when we take anger and we turn it inwards at ourselves. It's self-destructive and it's unhealthy. It's also a place where we tend to self-blame for what has happened. It's a very easy trap to slip into as others try to guilt or shame you with their behavior. It's a place of inability to see the goodness of your own spirit and your soul. For me, I was not interested in spending my life in darkness. I was interested in learning to live in a gentler place with less anger and less sadness. For me, the harder type of forgiveness is that of self-forgiveness. After all, society tells us that we need to feel guilt and shame early on. We tell our kids that they're bad if they don't act in a way that pleases us. Often kids are told that they're bad and not okay. This is the beginning of shaming that happens all too early. What we really need to do is separate behavior from the person. Having been the target of the abuse in my birth family, I was shamed into thinking I deserved the abuse. I was told that I was to blame, that I was the problem child. When a person hears this over and over, it's really hard to crawl out of that hellhole and to see that it's not true. Again, I made the choice to take my power back and deny my abusers control over me. This became clear to me as I've done more self-growth work through my lifetime. Self-forgiveness is harder for someone like me because deep down inside, again, I thought I caused the abuse. That was the work of the abusers. That was their goal. I had to get through many years of hard work and self-awareness and therapy to realize, yeah, that was the goal of my abusers, to blame me for what they did. It was not until some years ago that I was able to really see how much of a lie that was. It was not until I worked on forgiving myself and letting go of the shame that I could learn to open my wings and start to fly free. Part of my flight was leaving an equally unhappy and overly long marriage. Part of my flight has been a reclamation of who I am in name and in spirit. Things that brought me joy and happiness are things I want to revisit doing. Meantime, I work to stay in the here and the now. I work to stay in the moment and breathe. I work to remind myself that when a person is unhappy and miserable, yeah, they're going to strike out at me in some way, try to deny responsibility for their own behavior, and work to shame me. So then I make a choice. I can either engage in the trauma and the drama, as I call it, or give myself a chance to process my feelings. Sometimes I'll be angry. Sometimes it'll be pain. But now I'm able to move on sooner, faster, and with less agony than before. So what are the benefits of self-forgiveness? Oh, there's so many. One is that you have control over how you feel. No one can make me feel anything that I do not give them permission to. This is a paraphrase from a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. Her phrasing was more like, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And I so agree with her. We anger at those who try to make us feel inferior with their words or their actions. In reality, it is those who end up needing to forgive, that we need to end up needing to forgive because they need it the most. It is those in the world who are filled with anger and self-loathing who try to inflict the most damage or pain on others. More benefits of forgiveness. Well, a huge one is it feels really good when you can get there. It is like having to climb up the most incredibly steep wall with huge barriers in the way. Think myth of Sisyphus and his rock. He was damned to keep rolling that rock up the hill for eternity. When you do the work to figure out where you get injured or even slightly maimed, then you get to figure out how to heal. You get to stop rolling that rock up the hill. Healing equates with the start of forgiving and rolling that boulder up the hill over and over and finally figuring out what happened, to be able to analyze it and know that you have escaped that hell. That is the victory and the joy of learning to forgive. The most joyful moments come from learning to do this sooner and most easily after being hurt. The joy also comes with responsibilities. Those include owning your own behavior and becoming aware of when you might have hurt someone. Forgiveness includes knowing you have healed so well that you can actually apologize if you've stepped over the boundaries of someone else. It means having the courage to own who you are, your actions. If you err, if you mess up, if you make a mistake, think how good it feels to be able to be honest and say to the other person, wow, I'm really sorry. Forgive me. When you fully self-forgive, this is much easier because you've healed from the inside out. Your soul and your heart are no longer wounded. You might say to a person like me who's been through incredible trauma, hey, Elizabeth, how do you find the ability to heal, to forgive, and forgive yourself? Well, for me, it was a conscious choice to decide that if I didn't heal, if I didn't forgive, if I did not move on with my life, then I would continue to suffer. No one else is here tending my wounds. No one of my abusers is here taking care of my spirit or my soul to help me. I made the choice. I made the choice to cleanse the wounds that were inflicted on me because I saw no other option. I do not see hurting others as an option. I don't see sitting in the victim role as being an option. I see making my life better as the way to be. Out of my wounds, out of my pain, I made the choice to be in a profession to heal others. It can be what I term soul-sucking work. It can and it is often very rewarding work. I have made it my mission in life to leave the world a better place than I found it. I hope that I've come full circle in my work. After all, the woman who first helped me was a clinical social worker. Years pass and I think of her and all she tried to do for me. She was there and she listened and she supported me. Sometimes that's all we can do for others. In the meantime, I have also come to realize that forgiveness has given me the ability to learn to accept and love who I am. Do I always do this perfectly? No. Do I still get hurt by others? Yes. Do I still respond in anger and out of pain? Yes and yes. What I don't do is I don't self-blame. I forgive myself for being imperfect. I choose to forgive others for being imperfect as well. May we all find a way to move past our pain and our anger into forgiveness, as it has so many gifts to offer us. Thank you.
We welcome this morning Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. What a brave and vulnerable thing to share with us this morning. I'd like to invite Emily Salinas to talk about the All Souls Ministerial Discretionary Fund.
As you may know, each week we share half of our offering with a community partner that shares our values. This week, our Sharing the Plate recipient is our own All Souls Ministerial Discretionary Fund. This fund allows for our church to provide financial assistance to community members in need. So the link that you see on your screen will also be pasted in our chat. You can copy and paste this into your browser, and I invite you to give as generously as you are able. Thank you, and our offertory will now be taken.
Don't know just where I'm going, and tomorrow it's a little overwhelming, and the air is cold, and I'm not the same anymore. I've been running in your direction for too long now. I lost my own reflection, and I can't look down. If you're not there to catch me when I fall, if this is the moment I stand here on my own, if this is my rite of passage that somehow leads me home, I might be afraid, but it's my turn to be brave. If this is the last chance before we say goodbye, at least it's the first day of the rest of my life. I can't be afraid, 'cause it's my turn to be brave. All along, all I ever wanted was to be the light. Oh, when your life was daunting, but I can't see mine, when I feel as though you're pushing me away. Well, who's to blame? Are we making the right choices? 'Cause we can't be sure if we're hearing our own voices as we close the door, even though we are so desperate to stay. If this is the moment I stand here on my own, if this is
I'd like to give you an opportunity to fill out the connection cards, and I will paste that link into the chat very shortly here. There's several various things that you can sign up for, but one I particularly want to highlight, and that is the action that will be happening on July 10th. So this is an action that's spearheaded by Bruce and Cece Russell Jane, that has come out of their trip to Minnesota and their kind of historical involvement with the treaty people and the water protectors. So today is July 4th. It is your national holiday, and a day that is special to many Americans as one that represents freedom and the ability to throw off a yoke of tyranny. This is speculation from my 10 years living in the United States. So if this doesn't represent your experience, please correct me, but this is what I hear from Americans. And in that vein of understanding what freedom means, I do want to call attention to the water protectors, treaty people's action, because historically, Indigenous peoples, not just in the United States, but all over the world, have been the least represented group in terms of understanding how their histories have been erased, how their rights have been trampled, and their freedoms been taken away. There is no day of freedom for Indigenous people because that day has never come. And that is a history that America reckons with still and will reckon with forever, the mass genocide in the history of making of a country. And so this is not going to solve that. Marching in support of the treaty people, marching in support of the water protectors is not going to make that history go away. But it is one action that says we recognize that you are fighting for one aspect of your freedom, the freedom to have a treaty that is respected, and the freedom to protect your ancestral lands. And we stand in solidarity with you. So on July 10th, we will be meeting at 10 a.m. at the All Souls parking lot, and then carpooling or driving our own cars as we so choose. And so we'll meet in the All Souls parking lot, do a brief training about what the water protectors and treaty people are asking us for as those standing in solidarity here in the Midwest. And then we will drive down to the Broad Ripple Canal and engage in a nonviolent, peaceful protest. We'll stay on public property the entire time. There'll be a short blessing of the waters and some music at the canal, and a short teach-in about the effort to stop Line 3. So many of you probably remember DAPL and the efforts to stop that Reverend Anastasia Zinke talked about when she was here. And it seems inevitable, doesn't it? It seems disheartening that we're here again, yet again. But if anything, we have learned in recent history that the line will break. It will pollute water sources. It will violate the health and safety of many people living in those ancestral lands. At no time has an oil company claimed that something was safe and then it turned out to be safe. Every line has broken. And so I invite you to come and stand with us that day and donate 2 or 3 hours of your time that morning to engage in a form of celebrating freedom. I love a cookout. I love some potato salad. Potato salad's perhaps my favorite of all American foods. It's so mayonnaise-y, and there's just like an inordinate amount of like fat and carbohydrates. There's just no way to not feel guilty, but it's great. I love that as a celebration of freedom too. But come with me on July 10th and celebrate a different kind of freedom, a different kind of acknowledgement of the kind of shared freedom we're all working for. Thank you. Some announcements before you go. Contact me if you're interested in some garden beds. We need to do some work on the community garden. I know Mike O'Rourke already has his tomatoes planted, but we have 6 more beds that are available to be claimed. So if any of you would like to have a garden bed, please do drop me an email and then we can get started on that. I also have some tomato starts raised by Rachel Torres, who is a new congregant. She's not able to come with us very often because she works on a farm and works at the Broad Ripple Farmers Market on Saturdays, but she has donated those to the church. So we have some seedlings to get us started. enjoy your holiday. So a benediction from Reverend Joel will close us out.
May our time here together have set us freer than when we came. And may our understanding of forgiveness be broadened so that we find the freedom we all need to become the most beautiful people we can be. Go in peace, be in peace. We'll gather again.
All right, everyone. For those of you that would like to stay for coffee hour, breakout rooms will be opening in just a little bit. So take this chance to go refill your beverage, and see you all back here in a few minutes.